and welcome to Big Talk live from the nation's capital. My name is Erika Michael. Joining us tonight as we continue to look and focus on more development in the cause of our national development. 2024 is winding down, and they were really having a concern. Many thanks everyone for to look at the impact of technology both in our human rights, justice systems, investigations in the country, and the use of cameras everywhere in the country has continued to also raise a lot of concern. The police have always yes, been in support of that, but in other cases we've also seen where with evidences made by some of those cameras, which is largely due to the rising causes of technology into our system. But it's still posing a lot of questions to our society in respect to how far are we adjusted to understand that technology has come in to stay with us, and not just for the social aspect, but it has also become become more of a political tool. We've seen cases of fake news. We've also heard cases of misinformation, unverified content that have been circulated on all of these platforms. It looks like it's still major problems in respect to our human rights. We've also heard cases of defamatory comment on the social media platform is still a major concern, and tonight we'll be joined by an expert who will be expressing some of this concern, giving us an insight better to how we can better use this tool to advance our development and make our society better. Nkem Aguma is the Africa Program Manager of Witness. She joins us virtually on the program tonight. Thanks so much for spending some of your evening with us on the show.
For having me. Happy holidays.
Very well. Let's look at so far technology has moved from one stage to the other. Before now it was just on the few hands of some specialists, but right now it is everywhere, the nooks and crannies of this country. Even the police have also had cases where cameras, have been used to back up some evidences for videos and all of those things. Do you feel that technology is helping our justice system, is helping advance human rights, or in a way proper education has not really been held?
Thank you so much. I absolutely believe that technology has greatly impacted human rights, both in its advancement, but also in the rollback of the gains that we have made over the years as far as the advancement of human rights is concerned. We usually would say that technology has really influenced the way fact-finding and human rights investigation has happened over the years. So we went from the time when fact-finding missions were done by institutions or by institutional journalists, right, who had to go physically to where the violation might have happened and try to uncover the truth of it. Today, we're at the point where with a mobile phone camera, you can in real time document rights violations as they happen in your environment. And I think that is revolutionary. It has created a situation where there are no gatekeepers in the normative sense of the word, where we're able to, there are cameras everywhere, there are eyes everywhere. So the truth can no longer die or be buried in the dark, because we all can be witnesses to injustices where they happen. And we can use a simple camera phone, a simple mobile phone camera to push for justice, and we do not have to have an elevated status to be able to do that. And it's not just the mobile camera that has become such an effective tool, it's also the modes of distribution. There has been a decentralization or a democratization, if you like, of distribution channels with the advent of social media. Now, instantaneously, you can publish human rights violations as you see them, put that on social media, create a groundswell, mobilize on that platform, and hold the perpetrators accountable. There are many, many stories to illustrate the success of this model. However, there's been challenges. We have seen that this has spooked perpetrators of violence, in the sense that there's now been untold forms of targeting of human rights defenders and activists, and even of just ordinary people who found themselves in a situation where they took it upon themselves to bear witness, right? Where there's unlawful arrest and detention of people who have documented or have just distributed evidence of violations as they have seen that. So there is a clamp down, such an intense clamp down on the civic space, an intense clamp down on this mode of expression. And I believe that the right to record is something that we have to protect, because it's what ensures transparency, it's what ensures that we're able to hold perpetrators of violence to account and ensure that the truth does not die in the dark.
I mean, would you say that it is becoming an evidence, because we've also had cases where when some of these comments or informations are being spread, one way or the other, the receiver or those who probably also disagree with those that are using the content or that spread the content sometimes end up in the courtroom or issues of defamations and all of that, and cyberbullying, and or even on the content that is under our law. Would you say that where it's becoming an evidence on the other hand for people to say this is what I said, and for me to also have my own defense in the courtroom, the judges might see to read that it's becoming also a basis of our investigation or a means of what has been gathered in order to make a judgment?
Well, I think that you touch on very two critical things. So one is the admissibility of audiovisual evidence in court, and that's being relied on to make decisions, right? And the second is that audiovisual evidence being used as some form of leverage by the documenter to say that you cannot discredit me because I have visual evidence that this happened. As against the time when it was basically my account against your account. And even in the face of visual evidence, there is still a powerful place for testimonies. So we can't discountenance that. And part of what we push as an organization is we must not get to the point where if there is no evidence, then we do not believe it, right? Because that does a grave injustice to underrepresented communities who suffer various forms of violations that might not be captured by a camera. And this includes the forms of violations that are gendered, where women are disproportionately impacted by that. We know that when sexual and gender-based violence happens, it's very unlikely that it would be captured with a camera, because this is often done behind closed doors. There are often no witnesses apart from the perpetrator or perpetrators and the victims, right? So there is still a powerful place for testimonials, but at the same time, it is definitely a leverage. It is a leverage that the survivors, the victims can hold up to say, I have evidence that this happened. And we've seen instances where perpetrators of violence would deny that this never happened until the visual evidence turns up. And when the visual evidence turns up, then the next excuse is that, well, that is a deepfake. That was created using manipulated media. The second point that you touched on is the admissibility of audiovisual evidence and it being relied upon to make decisions. And that is very critical. And it really depends on the jurisdiction where you fall. There are many jurisdictions where audiovisual evidence is admitted as evidence in court and is also relied on in the decision that is made either by the judge or by the jury. And there are other jurisdictions where the admissibility of audiovisual evidence is just not in the books. And even when it is to a very limited degree with such a high threshold. And that's a different level of advocacy that needs to happen, because we do know that this is a very critical form of evidence that could amount to justice in the court of law. However, we must not restrict the power of visual evidence to the confines of a courtroom. Visual evidence can achieve justice for the victims in different pathways to justice. And this includes other forms of justice. It could be for advocacy, for campaigning, for mass action, right? We've seen where just a single video that was posted on social media completely influenced decision makers to rethink a particular policy or to initiate a law. right? So visual evidence is so powerful, and the technology has evolved so rapidly in such a way that it is now right here at our fingertips, and it can be used. And so what we work on as an organization is to work with activists, human rights defenders, frontline community journalists on how to document in a way that it reaches the highest evidentiary standard to ensure that it is both reliable and it is authentic. Like, it's reliable, it is verifiable, and it is the authenticity is not called to question. And there are basic tactics through which this can be done, and that's what we've done the last 30 years, really working with communities at the front line on how to elevate the evidentiary value of their audiovisual evidence.
So how do we manage these AI? Because we've always seen visuals that have been generated through the AI, artificial intelligence, sometimes even misinterpreting, or also taking the place of human form, or where you understand how this has become so dangerous. We've always seen in cases of even election period, AI have also been deployed. So video generated AI, for instance, sometimes it makes the authenticity of a content to be real, or sometimes misleading. How would we be able to manage all of that if we say that visual content is good for a justice system and also helpful to investigations?
Well, generative AI, is such a buzz right now, but also for good reasons, right? It seems to have crept into every facet of our lives, and certainly human rights has not been exempted from this phenomenon. But it's also not a new phenomenon, right? AI has been here for over 2 decades. Generative AI is relatively new, but AI has, and what we really try to push is that let us get away from the hype. Let us move away from the rhetorics, and let us ask critical questions, the questions that would help us to identify what the real threats are. And what is this rhetoric I'm talking about? Rhetoric that AI is so dangerous, and it really would end our world as we know it, and it is impacting on the world and on human rights in ways that create a setback, in ways that are disempowering for the communities that we work with. But it also presents tremendous opportunities that is up to be leveraged, right? That we could leverage and use as a tool, an effective tool to advance justice and accountability. It has been the mega year of election, and it was said that this is the election that AI would influence not just its process but also its outcome. And we've seen various instances of how AI has been deployed, not just in Europe or in the global north, but also in the global majority. In Africa, in the elections in Africa, in the just concluded elections in Ghana, there were some evidence of deepfakes being used, particularly audio deepfake. We also saw an interesting case of when AI was used by a political candidate to, create a 3D visual representation of the kind of society that he would bring forth if he was elected into office, right? So there's a lot of opportunities there, but there are also threats. One of which is the liar's dividend that generative AI presents. And this is when bad actors use the presence of AI as a cop-out, as an opportunity to evade accountability, to simply state that what is authentic, what has been captured as their action, is a deepfake. And then it places the burden on journalists, on human rights defenders to prove that what they know to be true is actually true. So it is such a deep-seated challenge for the advancement of human rights, because we have to continue to uncover injustices, and a powerful tool to do that is audiovisual evidence. But we also now know that it is vulnerable audiovisual evidence, because the ease of audiovisual manipulation is at an all-time high, thanks to artificial intelligence. And so these then creates a liar's dividend for bad actors to evade accountability. The antidote to that is we need to expand on our media literacy, our overall understanding of how generative AI works. Because a lot of these cop-outs that we have seen done by bad actors, if we have a basic understanding to know that, well, this video of you doing this thing that you are now claiming to be an AI is actually impossible for AI to create that at this time. It cannot create dynamic shots of different angles at the same time, at this time. So that's not true. Right, so you really do not need to be a media forensic expert to analyze the entire footage to say that this is definitely not doctored by AI. Just a basic media literacy of how AI works, actually such an effective tool in the hands of not just human rights defenders and activists, but also journalists, who are often the one whom this burden of proof is placed on. I also think that there is also a place for a framework around how we respond to AI as a continent. What is the framework that we would work with? Because the challenges that AI presents in Africa, in Nigeria, is quite unique to what it presents and how it shows up in Europe, or how it shows up in the Asia Pacific, because we have a different experience and we have a different engagement with this tool. So there has to be a continental, a national framework around how we respond to AI. And this could be in policy, it could be in regulation. But when we think of regulation, we also have to be very mindful, because we know that there is a slippery slope there. We do not want any form of regulation that invades on the rights to privacy, or any form of regulation that clamps down on the rights to freedom of expression. So it's a fine balance that must be maintained, and this is where civil society plays a greater role in engaging with policymakers and lawmakers as well.
On the course of the year 2024, we've seen the part so the social media platform have really played. They go to Kenya. The protests that erupted for some months, started from the social media. You come to Nigeria, the end by governor's protest of the 1st of August to the 10th of August, even the 2020 end SARS protest, all of that activism, will you call it digital activism, has been fueled by some of these platforms. Sometimes we've seen it escalated out of hand, out of the intentions from what was tweeted on the social media platform to the real life of losing some life and destruction of properties and all of those things. Government sometimes, but in Africa, has said that there are dangers to some of these platforms. They have been moved by previous government to even ban one of the social media platforms. That also sparked a lot of concern. How do we manage all of those interests? One way or the other, the young people feel it's a platform for them to speak out. Government, on the other hand, said it looks at it is fueling crisis, it is leading to destruction, and all of those considerations.
I think the operational word, which is what you have just used, is consideration. At the heart of every intervention, it is important to us that human rights considerations are put at the center of that. And we do understand that there are times when trade-offs would need to happen. But when those trade-offs are happening, human rights considerations should not be what is thrown out the window or what's taken out of the table. The right to expression, the right to assembly, the right to privacy, the right to dignity, the right to fair hearing. These are fundamental human rights that are inalienable, that we all have and should not be taken away from us without due consideration, right? And in many instances, the books are clear on when and where derogations should happen. And what we do not want to see is a situation where, at the very instance, the option is to throw those human rights considerations out of the table. In 2021, 2022, until this time, we've seen an uptick of internet shutdowns across African countries where governments have shut down platforms or throttle the internet, which is to slow down the internet in certain areas or around certain periods of perceived tension, or a complete blackout of the internet. And we know that violations and atrocities, they thrive in the dark. And what the internet has done for us, like it or hate it, is it has created transparency. It has created an opportunity for us to see behind the veil. And so when the option is for the internet to be yanked off, then there's so much that happens that the chances of accountability could be really, really slim. So that should not be the consideration. There are ways in which that the authorities can engage with civil society. And historically, this has happened, where you can negotiate with civil society. Because at the end of the day, our goals have to be aligned, which is to have a progressive, a sustainable, and a thriving society where everyone feels a sense of belonging and is treated with full dignity. So the goals has to align. And I think that there is a responsibility to carry out those engagements in ways that allows us to get to a point of stability and not one that drives us further into anarchy.
A lot of concern. Just before I let you go, give us an understanding behind what all of this balance could mean, because of the advancing good and protecting both good governance and also individual rights as well, because it's still a major concern.
And I think that's definitely a balance that we have to continue to push towards. Like I said earlier, there is part of the responsibility that the government has is to ensure that the rights of its people are respected. It's the reason why we have these institutions. We have all of these institutions that are here to ensure that the rights of the people of the country are respected, and that includes their rights to freedom of expression, their rights to assembly, their rights to protest. That is a fundamental human right. And so it is the response should not be a clampdown. And I think that is the specific point that I'm making. The response should not be a clampdown. The response should not be a shrinking civic space. The response should not be the silencing of dissent. Actually, quite on the contrary, it should be opening up spaces for dialogue, opening up spaces for engagement, where there can be reasonable minds who put forward solutions that would solve the issue at hand. human rights consideration, again, should not be the first out of the table, should not be out of the table at all.
Hello, thank you so much for joining us, of course, giving us some of these instances. Of course, the perspective on the use of technology, which has become a crucial, and of course, has become an integral part of all of our economy, not just for social and political reasons and all of this. Thanks so much, Nkem Cynthia Anguwa, for joining us on the show. She is Africa Program Manager of Winners. Thanks so much for joining us on the show tonight.
Thank you.
All right, everyone. We'll continue to make meaning to how we can continue to adapt to living with technology. We've also had cases where cyberbullying has become a recent phenomenon. The police and Nigerian police are on the run with the public, and of course, warning, sending strong signal that cyberbullying is against the law, and no one should use or disguise this platform of social media to continue to make some unfounded commentaries and reactions and all of those contributions. And of course, the spread of fake news as well can also fuel crisis in our region. So there's a need of us to look back at 2024. How has technology impacted us, our journey for the 2024, in the aspect of the social life, in the aspect of the cultural, in the aspect of the economy, in the aspect of even the political move as we move over to 2025. It was crucial for us to have that conversation tonight on the show. We'll go on a very quick break, everyone, and once we return from the break, we'll be finalizing the discussion on the program. Please stay with us. Now, the federal government have responded to the Republic of Niger. The General of Niger, Tiani, who made some claims that Nigeria is collaborating with France to establish military bases on its soil. And now the federal government has emphasized that the country is now sabotaging Niger's Republic economic pipelines and agriculture, has been alleged by its military leader, General Tijani. In a statement just today, Mohamed Idris, Minister of Information and National Orientation, strongly rejected allegations made in a viral video by the military leader of Niger Republic, who claimed that collusion between Nigeria and France to destabilize the Niger Republic. Mr. Idris described the allegations as baseless and non-existent. These statements responded that the accusation that Nigeria seeks to sabotage Niger's pipelines and agriculture is both unfounded and counterproductive. And Nigeria has consistently supported Niger's economic development through the joint energy and infrastructure projects such as the Trans-Saharan Gas Pipeline and the Kano-Maradi Railway Project. It is illogical to suggest that Nigeria would undermine initiative it has actively promoted, Minister Idris stated. Recall that the junta in Niger Republic recently alleged that the Nigerian government has engaged with the France to destabilize the country. But Idris reiterated Nigeria's commitment to fostering peace, harmony, and historic diplomatic ties with Niger Republic. He urged the public to disregard the false allegations made by the military leader in Niger Republic, describing them as an attempt to blackmail Nigeria over ECOWAS' principal stance against the unconstitutional seizure of power in the Niger Republic. They concluded that President Tijani's allegations are not only unfounded, but also a dangerous attempt to divert attention from his administration's shortcomings amid Nigeria's commitment to fostering regional stability. And what you should know about all of this concern is the fact that the recent reactions on both sides comes after the authority of the heads of states and government of the Common Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, on December 16 gave Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger 6 months, starting from January 29 of the next year, 2025, to reconsider their withdrawal from the regional body. And they have also made some instances that those that are really having a concern of why would Niger Republic leader make such an unfounded statement. This Nigeria have responded very clearly. We'll continue to track on some of these developmental strides, economic purpose, and advancement of our national unity that has to do with the bilateral issues. And of course, the presidency have also understood the need to swing into actions. Of course, to found, he has also demanded that if they also have some fact, document or whatever to back up their standard, they should come out to make it very clear to the world. The government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has also raised commitment to be committed in promoting peace in the region, and most especially at a time like this where everyone needs each other. Hello everyone, that's where we begin to wrap it up on the show tonight, to continue to track some of these developments and also brings to you to speed what other actors saying. 2024 is winding down. There's still commitment to the economy, to the political development, and all spheres of our Nigeria's and national growth. We'll continue to always pray, as leaders and our governors have said on this Christmas message, that continue to pray for leaders to succeed. And it is the right, of course, the responsibility of citizens to also participate by wishing the leaders well to succeed. But as long as the citizens get to wish the leaders well, the leaders should also pay attention in doing the right thing, upholding the law, and also allowing the institutions of this country to work independently for the benefit of all Nigerians. We'll continue to track more of these stories and issues and concern to you subsequently on our show. My name is Edika Michael. This is where we close the curtain tonight on the show Big Talk. See you again.